Cancer cannot cripple love, it cannot shatter hope, it cannot conquer the spirit, but it is a marathon. You can't look at the finish line. You take it moment by moment, sometimes breath by breath, other times step by step. Wise people thoughtfully would say, a marathon that BENDA KITHAKA has set the pace towards the peak, otherwise Kilele, of Mount Kenya, the Kilele Challenge.
My name is Limo Kipkemoy. I'm an architect by training and by practice. On my other life, I'm a lover of the outdoors. I'm a recreational runner, ultra runner, a mountain runner or a sky runner. For a long time I've been a recreational runner just for fun, just pushing limits, getting more people to be on the outdoors for their own fitness, adventure and mental health. But this time around I'm partnering with Kilele to raise awareness of cervical cancer. This affects ladies and girls. So my role in this is to help raise awareness and at the same time raise funds towards that cause. So in regard to that, I'll be doing, myself and a couple of friends will be doing a run up, down and down Mount Longonot tomorrow to raise awareness for this, and then in about a month's time I'll be running up and down Mount Kenya, possibly 10 times, to highlight this cause. That again will be a record because I think the highest number of successive climbs on that mountain are 3, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so 10 will be quite a tall order. So I call upon everyone to support this cause.
Kilele Health Association is a membership organization. We are cancer survivors and their caregivers. I personally am a caregiver. We have survivors in the group. We are all working towards challenging perception, changing mindsets, and challenging community activity towards cancer prevention. Specifically, we work with cancer survivors and caregivers to give them skills in advocacy, communications, so that they're able to also pass on the baton to the community to tell their stories and inspire change towards prevention. Because we notice that there is a gap. Most often in Kenya we hear about cancer death, we hear about cancer diagnosis, but few people talk about the people who have been treated and they've actually survived. So those are the ones I'm working with as Kilele, to be able to equip them with advocacy skills for them to also call on the community to own the journey to prevention, because we know prevention is better than cure. In 2010, I was in corporate Kenya. I was working in marketing and communications, and I was running the marketing department of one of the biggest motor vehicle industries in Kenya. And one evening, we were planning a car launch. One evening I was called and I was told that my sister had cancer. And at that moment, the husband was telling me what he was going through and was saying what challenges he was facing. And one of them was, how will he raise his small child if my sister was to pass on? She was 27. Of course, we received the news with the same way that every other Kenyan would receive: concern, fear. But also for me, it was, bring her to Nairobi. She lives in the village. Bring her to Nairobi, let's see what can be done. When she came to Nairobi, she was treated, she recovered. And in a year, she had conceived. And now she has a baby who is 10 years old. That for me was joy. And because I didn't know where to start, I started with what I had, which was information and awareness. I read broadly on cervical cancer. I read broadly on prevention. I read broadly to understand why my sister would have such a gift and other women don't, that other women are losing their lives. And so in 2012, I started an organization with 3 other women. We were 4 of us who started Women for Cancer. And the organization was working in the space for prevention of cervical cancer. And we would go to communities, we would talk about it, we would tell people how to prevent, we would screen women, we would get women in hospitals. But the moment they are treated and they recover, our job was done. Okay? Okay, so Kilele was inspired from that journey of watching that we're telling people, go, get screened, you will be well. And then when they get better, they go back home and they're trying to reintegrate back into the community, and the society is not the same. Because maybe she's lost her job, maybe she's lost her husband, because men sometimes disappear on women who have been diagnosed with cervical cancer, for example, or breast cancer. We find that society, the community has disintegrated, her life has changed. All of a sudden she has needs that she may not be able to meet. And sadly, there is the question of recurrence that's not talked about. And cancer does recur. And so Kilele was inspired from that point of, let's then address the issue of survivorship. Let's work with survivors to address quality of life in prevention, okay? Quality of life, mental, quality of life, physical, financial, because cancer is an expensive disease to treat, social, that there is stigma, there is fear, how do we demystify? And lastly, spiritual, that this journey that I've gone through, I've seen others pass on. How can I utilize that to change the narrative? And the same with me. It's what I've been doing. I was given a gift, my sister as well. How can I use that narrative to inspire other women to get the same gift that my sister got? And so fast forward to Kilele, we decided we're going to address it. As I've mentioned, 4 pillars of quality of life. And they're the 4 pillars on the mountain for us. We climb physical mountains. We actually go up Mount Kenya every year. We climb social mountains. We train survivors and caregivers to tell their stories so that they can go back to the community and inspire change. We climb mental mountains where we train on mental wellness, because the diagnosis with a cancer disease, the diagnosis with any other disease can cause quite a havoc on people's lives mentally. So we do that as well, mental wellness training. And financially, there is always the question of, so a survivor has learned how to tell their skill. We'll invite them to talk in the media, but they need transport to move around. How will that be monetized? And so with Kilele, we said, we use what we have. Okay? What we have is skills and communication. What we have is ability to change mindsets and to change the community. And that's why Thamani Yetu, because Thamani Yetu is our value. We talk about what's our value. Our value is that story on the table. Our value is that ability to change other people's mindsets. Our value is the women and girls who will prevent today for the future. Okay? And so by helping women safeguard their health, we are also able to monetize and be able to compensate the survivors for them to be able to earn an income.
Cervical cancer is one of the most rampant diseases among women, and very little is known concerning preventive measures and treatment. And that is what prompted Mrs. Kithaka to seek and collaborate with experts on the same.
One of those cancers that we've seen, if the correct systems of screening, diagnosis, treatment are fully implicated, it's one of those that we've seen that we can actually prevent and hopefully try to eliminate. The burden shift from the Western countries has reduced, but for low middle income countries we still have high numbers and we still have very, very poor outcomes. There's different risk factors. So HPV is one we stress on. The risk groups are especially women who've had sexual intercourse early, especially those below 20. It's been seen that just because of the way the cervix cell morphology changes and the maturation, they're at higher risk. Those that have had intercourse with multiple sexual partners, because that way HPV infection is higher. Those that have had partners that have also had multiple sexual partners. Those that are immunosuppressed, as mentioned. Those that smoke. Those that also have, there's some nutritional deficiencies that have been pointed out, like vitamin C and beta carotene having a role, but also those from low and middle income backgrounds, just because their concentration on diagnosis and even full treatment is more difficult, and there are a lot of it's one of the barriers that prevents appropriate screening, diagnosis, and human treatment. With cervical cancer, we talk about prevention, and prevention is dynamic, and it's also serialized. So with this primary prevention, with focuses mainly on public awareness and knowledge. Yeah. Then there's secondary prevention, which focuses mainly on screening, and screening is doing assessment tests for women who are asymptomatic, not having symptoms. Early diagnosis is making sure that if they have symptoms that are suspicious for cervical cancer, that they seek healthcare as early as possible, so that treatment is ensued. And then tertiary prevention is that even if you have a patient with the diagnosis of the disease, that they get the appropriate treatment, that they're followed up well, and there's no relapse or recurrence, and they do get to live a full life after that.
Dealing with cancer patients requires special know-how and proper attention from caregivers, the doctor adds.
I'm a childhood cancer survivor and also a caregiver to my late aunt who had cervical cancer.
Cancer survivorship comes with its challenges. There is an issue, so people need to understand survivorship is not about you've been treated, you're well, you've gone home. Survivorship starts the moment a diagnosis is made. And the first challenge is how the news is broken and how the news will be received. We've seen cases where somebody gets the news they have cancer and they don't want to believe it. Or they have been told they have cancer and the family says, no, we think you need prayers. And they'll take them to the church for prayer or to the place of worship for prayer. No, it's nutrition. They take them to get nutritional advice, not recognizing that the time is passing and they need to get treated as quickly as possible. And then by the time they come back to the healthcare system, it's because now the cancer is late stage, sadly, when if treatment had been accessed early, it could have been treated. There is the social aspect, stigma. How do you tell a woman who has lost her breast, yeah? And there is this element of breast cancer, some of the treatment options is surgery, and the woman the breast has been removed so that we can preserve her life. We've seen cases where financially the patient, the family is depleted, and they have to start Harambes. And of course with Harambes, the fear is other people run away. You contribute once, twice, the third time, nobody's picking your calls. There is of course the question on beyond cancer. What kind of quality of life will it be? If somebody has lost a leg because the cancer has been removed with that leg, how will they cope with life beyond that point? Somebody who has lost their breasts to cancer, how will they redeem their esteem and get back their dignity and get back to quality of life? People assume it's just about beauty, but there is also the question of balancing the chest area so that the back muscles are not overstretched. So there is the quality of life beyond the beauty aspect. There is the quality of life in managing personal appearance, managing self-esteem, managing coping with that disease, and there is always the fear of will it recur. Colorectal cancer, for example, when somebody has to get a stomach bag and they no longer can pass stool through their normal channel, that they have to get a hole drilled on them for them to pass stool. They need the colostomy bag, but the bag is being charged taxes. And it's not a cheap bag, it's $1,000, and somebody can't afford that.
Judy Wanjiru, a cancer survivor, is a grateful soul to have met the Kilele Foundation.
Kwa hii organization nilijipata sababu mimi ni cancer survivor. Nilikuwa nimejichukia sababu watu wote walikuwa wamenitoroka. So kuna mtu alikuja akanielezea kuhusu Kilele. Kaniambia ni John Kilele. Nitakuwa nimepata pahali pa kulilia.
What gives me joy is to see people who are motivated to live every single day fully. And that's what we do in Kilele. We encourage each other, we build each other up. There are days even I need motivation. And then someone will write something and I'll be reminded, why I'm in the space I am in, and that gives me joy.
Kilele inanisaidia sababu kama tuseme niko na shida, nimejipata nimeandikiwa hiyo dawa na sina hiyo pesa, tunakuaga close sana na BENDA, unampigia simu unamwambia niko na shida hii na hii, anakusaidia bila ataweza. Kwa hivyo Kilele mimi kwanza kwangu mimi imenisaidia sana.
When I started Kilele, I was at that point in time where I had reached the point of almost near depression. I had lost a friend to cervical cancer. Remember, I've been working with this lady all these years, talking to communities, telling them go get screened, survivorship is possible, and then she passes on because of a recurrence of cervical cancer. And at that time I was asking myself, what are we going to do to change this narrative? And so, going up Mount Kenya, the very first time for me, was sort of a pilgrimage to challenge God and to ask him questions. So in my talking to God in that silence, in my team sings a lot when we climb, in those praise worship songs, in those moments of self-reflection, it was a journey of self-discovery. So my goals were set out to be, I'm climbing Mount Kenya to go and talk to God and challenge him. I came back challenged, and we registered the organization, and now we are a functional organization with a secretariat. But, and as I said, I don't take credit. We have been blessed that we have partners who work with us. MSD, the vaccines manufacturer, has been quite supportive, because when we said we are not able to afford the vaccine for girls who are out of the national government free vaccine. And secondly, people still don't know about the HPV vaccine. How do we demystify and create awareness? They came on board and have been supporting us in training advocates and also in information, technical information, so that we understand better. Because you only fear that which you don't understand.
Cervical cancer, as you say, affect the female gender. So it's good that we as the men lead in championing this cause for prevention, treatment, and all that it entails. And I think if the men folk can actually be vocal about it and support, especially the early stages, that's prevention, screening, we could go a long way in eradicating this illness.
There could be no definition of a successful life that does not include service to others, and that is what brings our heroine the greatest joy of her life, knowing that she is impacting lives positively.
Ningependa kuwaambia wenye hawajaingia Kilele uje tuende hii safari pamoja, na wenye hawajapimwa waende wapimwe, sababu kipatikana kama haijaendelea sana utabahatika. Na wenye wako na watoto chini ya miaka 10 wapeleke watoto wakapate ile sindano, sababu hii safari si rahisi.
Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, but we need to move together, just as we do in healthcare. We move as a multidisciplinary team. We weigh in on people's strengths. We also help each other's weaknesses. We fall back for each other. We know that some people make it, but some people don't. But we always need to push the others to always get to that summit.
For me, I've chosen my path towards this cause, to climb in support. Choose yours.
Cervical cancer is preventable. Quite a number of cancers are preventable. Know yourself, know your family history. Go get screened. Don't fear screening, because with early detection, it's preventable.